Hi guys. Okay, today we're going to talk about time management. And although it was a question that was posed by some law students about how to apply time management to law school, I think a lot of the tips I'm going to tell you today can apply to anybody, not just law students. So let's talk about it. So if you're new to the channel, we give tips on pre-law, law school, and beyond, but we have stuff for everybody. So this topic today is probably going to apply to everybody. Time management, or the lack thereof, may be some people's problem. And I think at this point in my life, I've kind of figured it out. I mean, I've had to change several hats since my journey from law school, but some of the things that I did in law school apply to, just my life now. And I think that they're helpful. So tip number one is just like a general thing. All the clocks, including like my watch, except for my cell phone, like the microwave clock, the stove clock, any clocks in my house are all set ahead of time, ahead of schedule, right? I have to psych myself out to say like, okay, I don't know how much ahead of schedule they are on purpose, but I know like when I set the clock, it'll be the whatever right time it is, and I'll go click, 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 no, and not pay attention to it so that I know that whatever this time is, that's the time I go by. And at the end of the day, I'm always on time to places. Always is a generalization. Typically, 99% of the time, I'm on time places because I've already psyched myself out. And that's something little, like a simple thing. Some people may be like, oh, well, you know how fast it is, so you just go by. No, I really don't. Like, I really try to psych myself out so that I think whatever that time is the time I need to abide by. I know it's ahead of time, but that's the time I need to abide by. I joke with my daughter and my son, and I say, when you're on time, you're late. When you're early, you're on time. And when you're late, you're fired. Right? So that's what I kind of abide by when I try to make sure I get to places on time, right? So I'm going to explain how this works as far as like, make sure you're getting to classes, make sure you're getting to your court dates, make sure, things of that nature. But it also applies to just your daily schedule. Like if you set your clock ahead of time and you don't know how far it is set ahead of time, watch. You'll be on time or you'll be early to places and you're like, oh, I'm always early because I've psyched myself out. So that's tip number one. Okay, similar to tip number one, it involves like my calendar. So I rely heavily on a calendar. It's an electronic calendar in my phone where I have dates for everything, right? Birthdays, due dates, the place I need to be, if I need to bring something for school for the kid, all those are set in my calendar, right? And what you can do is pull up your calendar, whether you have an Android or iPhone, pull up your calendar and whatever the dates let's say you have a list of dates for your law school assignments. You go pull up your calendar, find whatever the date is, put in that the due date is a day or two before so that when you're looking on your calendar, bring up the month view because you can view weekly or monthly. Bring up the month view, look on your calendar and put whatever the due date is 2 days earlier. In the notes section, so if you open up the actual date, so like add a entry, you put the actual law school assignment in there, right? And in the notes section, you can actually put what the real due date is, but you would actually have to go in there and figure that out later. Just by like a quick browse of the monthly view of the calendar, you would think that, whatever your due date is a little earlier. And in your head, you can say, I can manage my life that way, right? Because you're going to always be early. I say this because I'm going to give you a little backstory on why it's important to also make sure you work on things before the due date. Is when I was in my 1L year, I was working on an assignment the night before it was due, and my computer crashed, lost all my information. I wanted to cry. I couldn't back it up. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I emailed my professor and I'm just like, can I get another extension? She's like, nope, figure it out. I was up all night, right? Had I had that happen and it wasn't the night before, then that would have been something I could have, okay, I have a couple of days to get myself together, to try to rewrite it, try to think about things. The stress of it being the day before was not helpful. But it taught me a good lesson, like have better time management. It also told me that, like, let's say it was a court date. My professor's like, some judges won't give you an extension, right? They're like, no, this is the due date. It's due. So if you kind of condition yourself to say like, okay, my due date is this, and a couple of days earlier, it gives you kind of time to manage your other things that you may also have to balance in your life as well. Okay, tip number 3. Well, before I get into that, comment below. I want to know what kind of time management tips have worked for you so far so that you can possibly help somebody else, right? It's no one size fits all. So I kind of want to know what has worked for you, or what have you discovered like this works for me for law school or just life in general. Comment below so we can share this community, so share with everyone. So tip number 3 though is to schedule. I schedule basically everything, like from doing my laundry to cooking dinner to talking to people, like keeping in touch with family and friends. I schedule that. And although it's not necessarily on my calendar, well, sometimes I do put it on my calendar, right? So I won't forget if it's like a rare occasion. But at the time when I was in law school, my grandmother was alive at the time, and I was scheduled to talk to her on Sundays. So I would talk to her once a week on Sundays. That would be my daily thing. My weekly thing. It wouldn't have to be a long conversation, but it'd be enough to kind of check in. You have to be intentional. Law school is going to take up a lot of your time, and you possibly could go a long time without keeping in contact with people if you're not intentional about it. I was intentional about keeping in touch with my grandmother on Sundays. Sunday conversation, it could sometimes be a 15-minute conversation, sometimes an hour. It just depends, but I made time. Hey, Graham, I'm calling, check in, because I thought that was important. Even now, as my life has changed, I'm no longer in law school, but I have family, I have job, I have other obligations, a business, things of that nature. I sometimes call my friends like, okay, we'll text each other like, what day are you free? And we'll add it to the calendar so that we both won't forget, and so that it's intentional. Like, because you can go months without speaking to your friends if you don't kind of make it intentional. And it's like, okay, sometimes you may be busy. Hey, we can squeeze it in when the kids go to bed, or you can squeeze it in when I'm on my drive somewhere and you're doing this. Find some other way, but I think that's how I manage my time for the personal life, the social aspect of my life, not just for the law school and the business part of it. So keep that in mind too. You need to keep that, having relationships is very important. Making sure you're intentional about, taking care of those relationships, building those relationships is important as well. Okay, tip number 4 is kind of more managing yourself, right? This is part of self-care. Don't put a whole bunch of things on your to-do list, right? And I suffer with this sometimes, like overdoing it, and then you become anxious and overwhelmed, right? This goes back to the other tip where I said, like, have your little calendar out and say, okay, these are the things I can commit to, and make sure you're not like double booking things, right? Sometimes you may have to say no to certain things. Even let's say you don't have anything planned that day, but that was your day to kind of relax, and somebody says, hey, you want to do something? Sometimes you can be like, no, I can't, right? Because that was your self-care day. It was something that you had left that day out so that you can kind of decompress and relax. And that's very important. So don't overbook yourself. You may be saying no to certain things. And in law school, that may come up a lot because you may be studying for classes, trying to do assignments, trying to do the voluminous amount of reading. So keep in mind that you may be saying no. It may be for a temporary time, but like I said, even after law school, I had different obligations than when I had during law school. So you just got to balance it out and figure out, what you prioritize. What do you think is important? Oh, I haven't hung out with this person in a while. Let me go ahead and make the time to do that. Or I seen this person in a while. I'm going to say no because I just want to relax and kind of get my bearings together before the work week starts, or whatever else is happening. So keep that in mind. I hope that some of these tips you can apply them to your daily life. Like I said, whether you're a law student or not, I think these have been helpful to me. It's still a work in progress. I kind of move things around, flexible. Thursdays used to be my laundry day. I had to move it because my son's school schedule. So now I make a different day laundry day. It's still a day that I designate to do certain things in my head, but I'm flexible with realizing like, okay, I may need to adjust these things to accommodate other obligations. But as long as you're flexible about thinking about it, I think that you can take a good handle on time management and it won't take over you. So remember what I said about being on time? I made time to do this video. If you're watching this video, watch it, then apply it, and get back to work.